Hello fellow horror enthusiasts. Before we dive into tonight's terrifying tale, I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning coffee time, an afternoon break, or late night reading session. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to Cursed Archives for more spine-chilling stories that will keep you awake at night. Now, let's begin. My name is Alex, and I need to tell you what happened to my family. Not because I think anyone will believe me, but because writing it down is the only thing keeping me sane right now. The only thing that proves it really happened. We moved to the house in October. Mum said it was a fresh start after what she called a difficult year, which was her polite way of saying Dad had lost his job. Ethan had been arrested for vandalism, and I'd spent 3 months in therapy after the incident at school that we don't talk about. The house was cheap, she said. Came with 12 acres. Perfect for a family that needed space to heal. The real estate agent had been nervous, fidgeting with her keys as she showed us around. It's been on the market for a while, she admitted when Dad asked about the price. Previous owners, well, they left rather suddenly. I should have paid attention to the way she said that. The way her voice caught on suddenly, like it was a word that might bite her tongue. The house sat at the end of a dirt road that wound through dense forest for 3 miles before reaching civilization. Victorian style with a wraparound porch and tall windows that watched the tree line like eyes. It was beautiful in an unsettling way, the kind of beauty that makes you feel like you're being observed. Inside, the floorboards creaked with every step, and there were rooms that felt wrong somehow. Not cold exactly, but heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. The basement door was locked, and when Dad asked about it, the agent just shrugged. Previous owners must have lost the key. I'm sure you can break it open if needed. But it was Bandit, our golden retriever, who should have been our first real warning. He'd always been the bravest dog, the type to bark at thunderstorms and chase after bears in camping trips. But the moment we opened the front door, he planted his feet on the porch and refused to budge. No amount of coaxing, treats or pulling could get him inside. We had to build him a shelter in the backyard. He'll adjust, Mum said. But I caught her glancing nervously at the windows. The first week was normal enough. We unpacked boxes, Dad started repairs on the loose shingles, and Mum set up her meditation corner in the sunroom. Ethan claimed the attic bedroom because it had better Wi-Fi reception, though the internet was spotty at best out here. Lily chose the room next to mine because she said it felt friendly. I should have asked her what she meant by that. It started with small things. Lily began talking to someone in her closet during her afternoon naps. When I asked her about it, she just smiled and said she was playing with the Crow Lady. What does the Crow Lady look like? I asked. She's very tall and wears a pretty black dress. She tells me stories about the people who used to live here. Mum overheard and laughed it off as an imaginary friend. It's normal for children her age, especially after a big move. But imaginary friends don't usually teach 10-year-olds words in languages that sound like they're being spoken backwards. Around the same time, Mum started praying. Not unusual, she'd always been spiritual, but this was different. She'd spend hours kneeling in her meditation corner, whispering words I didn't recognise. When I asked her about it, she looked at me with eyes that seemed somehow brighter than they should be. I'm learning a purer form of worship, she said. The house has shown me things, Alex, beautiful things. The way she said it made my skin crawl. Dad's changes were more violent. He'd wake up with bruises on his arms and back, dark purple marks that looked like fingerprints. When Mum asked about them, he'd get this wild look in his eyes. The walls, he'd mutter. They push back at night. They don't want me here. But during the day, he seemed fine. Better than fine, actually. He worked on the house with an obsessive energy, reinforcing doors, boarding up windows, building locks for rooms that had never needed them. When I asked why, he just said we needed to keep things secure. Keep what's secure, Dad. What's ours, he replied, and something in his voice made me step back. Ethan's transformation was the quietest, but somehow the most disturbing. He'd started sleepwalking, which was new. I'd find him standing in the hallway at 3 a.m, staring at nothing, his lips moving silently. When I'd shake him awake, he'd look at me with confusion, like he didn't recognise me for a moment. But it was what I found carved into his desk that really scared me. Symbols. intricate, precise symbols that looked like they'd been etched with surgical tools. When I confronted him about it, he seemed genuinely puzzled. "I don't remember doing that," he said, tracing the markings with his finger, "but they look important, don't they?" By the end of the second week, I realised I was the only one who seemed bothered by any of this. When I tried to talk to them about the changes I was seeing, they'd just smile. But it wasn't their smile. It was something else wearing their faces, something that found my concern amusing. "You're being paranoid, Alex," Mum said, but her voice had taken on a sing-song quality that made my teeth ache. "Maybe you're the one who's changing," Dad suggested, and the way he looked at me made me feel like prey. The isolation truly began when the phone stopped working. Dad said it was probably the storm from the night before, but there hadn't been a storm. The sky had been clear. When we checked our cell phones, we had no signal. The internet was dead too. "We'll drive to town tomorrow," Mum said, but tomorrow came and went, and somehow we never made that trip. There was always something more pressing to do around the house. Always a reason to stay. The local priest, Father Martinez, visited us during the third week. I'd seen his car pull up the long driveway and felt a surge of relief. Finally, an outsider. Someone who might see what I was seeing. But after he spent an hour talking with my family in the living room, a conversation I wasn't invited to join, he left in a hurry. His face was pale and his hands were shaking as he got into his car. When I ran after him, he rolled down his window just long enough to say, "Pray for your soul, child, and don't let them know I told you that." He never came back. That night, my family held what they called a blessing dinner. They'd set the dining room table with our good china and lit dozens of candles. All four of them wore white clothes. White clothes I'd never seen before, like they'd materialised out of nowhere. "Sit," Mum commanded, and her voice carried an authority that made my knees weak. They held hands around the table and I was expected to join the circle. Their hands felt wrong, too cold, too strong, like they belonged to someone else. They began to pray, but not in English. Not in any language I recognised. The words seemed to come from somewhere deep in their chests, vibrating through the table, through the floor, through my bones. And they stared at me. All four of them, eyes locked on mine while their mouths moved in unison, speaking those horrible backward words. "You haven't been chosen yet," Mum whispered when the prayer ended, and the others nodded as if this made perfect sense. I excused myself and ran to my room, where I spent the night with a chair wedged under the door handle. That's when the nightly sounds started. After midnight, I'd hear voices coming from each of their bedrooms. Mum's room. Multiple voices arguing in that same strange language, sometimes rising to shrieks. Dad's room. Low, guttural growling and the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Ethan's room. Whispered conversations in what sounded like ancient dialects, occasionally interrupted by childlike giggling. Lily's room. Singing. Beautiful, haunting melodies that made me want to open my door and follow the sound, even though every instinct screamed not to. I started sleeping with earplugs, but somehow the sounds got through anyway, like they were coming from inside my head. During the day, they acted normal. Well, their version of normal. But I began to notice details. The way their shadows seemed to move independently, how their reflections in mirrors appeared a split second after they did, the fact that Bandit would howl whenever any of them approached the windows. I tried to leave. On a Tuesday morning I packed a bag and started walking down the dirt road toward town. But the forest seemed to shift around me. Paths I'd walked before led to dead ends. The road itself seemed to curve back on itself like a Mobius strip. After hours of walking, I found myself back at the house, where my family was waiting on the porch. "Going somewhere?" Dad asked, and when he smiled I saw too many teeth. That night I found the journal. I'd been searching my room for anything that might explain what was happening to us when I noticed a loose floorboard under my bed. Underneath, wrapped in oilcloth, were pages from what looked like a diary. The handwriting was frantic, desperate. Day 12. Sarah started speaking in tongues during breakfast. Little Michael drew a picture of our family, but we all had black eyes and claws. Tom keeps hearing voices telling him to hurt us. I think Emma is the only one still fighting it. Day 18. found the basement door. The key was hidden behind the water heater. What's down there? God help us. What's down there isn't meant for human eyes. Day 21. They're not my family anymore. They wear my family's faces, but something else looks out through their eyes. Emma is starting to change too. I can see it happening, the slow surrender. I might be the only one left. Day 24. Figured it out from the books downstairs. This house isn't haunted, it's a prison. Built in 1889 by a man named Cornelius Blackwood after he made some kind of deal. 4 demons, bound to this place, feeding on whoever moves in. They take you slowly, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but hunger wearing your skin. Day 27. If someone finds this, know that we tried to fight. The binding ritual is in the basement, carved into the altar, but it requires a willing sacrifice. I won't let them have Emma. I won't let them spread. The final entry was just one line, written in what looked like blood. The masks hold their true faces. Destroy the masks, free the demons. Wear the masks, become the demons. There is no third option. My hands shaking, I crept downstairs. The basement door stood open. When had Dad unlocked it? A musty smell drifted up from below, along with a sound like whispered conversation. The basement was larger than it should have been, extending far beyond the house's foundation. Old stone walls covered in symbols similar to what Ethan had been carving, and at the centre, an altar made of black stone. 4 masks sat on the altar. They were beautiful and terrible, carved from some kind of bone or ivory, each depicting a different expression. One serene and holy, one twisted with rage, one bearing a sly, knowing smile, one innocent and childlike, but with eyes that held ancient hunger. I understood then. My family hadn't been possessed in the traditional sense. They'd been recruited, chosen as vessels for something that had been waiting in this house for over a century. And I was meant to be the 5th. As I stood there staring at the masks, I heard footsteps on the basement stairs. Slow, deliberate footsteps, but too many of them. My entire family was coming down, moving in perfect synchronization. "Alex!" Mum's voice called, but it was harmonized with something else, something deeper. "Come join us, sweetheart. We've been waiting." I turned to see them arranged on the staircase like some twisted family portrait. Mum radiated an otherworldly light, her eyes completely white. Dad's hands were covered in blood that wasn't his, and his smile stretched too wide. Ethan's mouth moved constantly, whispering in 3 different languages simultaneously. And Lily. Lily was floating 6 inches off the ground, her head tilted at an impossible angle. "The Crow Lady says it's time," Lily giggled, and when she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once. "We just need one more vessel," Mum explained, descending another step. "The house needs a complete family. 4 isn't enough. 5 is perfect." "You've been so good," Dad added, his voice like gravel in a blender. "So strong. That's why you were saved for last. The strongest vessel for the strongest of us." I backed toward the altar, my mind racing. The journal had mentioned a binding ritual, but it required a willing sacrifice. What did that mean? "Don't be afraid," Ethan whispered, and suddenly he was behind me, though I hadn't seen him move. "It doesn't hurt. We're still us, Alex. We're just more now." Lily's laughter filled the basement, echoing off the stone walls. "Alex is scared. Alex is scared. But the Crow Lady says fear makes the joining sweeter." I looked at the masks on the altar. 4 demons, bound to this place for over a century. The journal writer had been right. There was no third option. Destroy the masks and free the demons to spread across the world, wear a mask and become a demon myself. But maybe there was a third option he hadn't thought of. "You know what?" I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "You're right. I am ready to join you." My family stopped their advance, tilting their heads in unison like confused birds. "But I want to understand first," I continued. "I want to know which demon I'm supposed to house. Show me." Mum smiled that not quite right smile. You'll house the eldest, Alex, the one who commands the others, the one who's been waiting the longest. Show me, I repeated. Dad reached for something behind the altar, a fifth mask, larger than the others, carved from what looked like human bone. The moment he lifted it, the temperature in the basement dropped 20 degrees. That's when I made my move. Instead of reaching for the eldest mask, I grabbed all 4 of the others. The moment my fingers touched the bone, images flooded my mind. Centuries of trapped rage and hunger, families destroyed, children corrupted, an endless cycle of possession and despair. But I also saw something else. The binding wasn't just about trapping them, it was about balance. 4 demons, 4 vessels contained within the house's walls. Remove the balance. What are you doing? Mum shrieked, her holy facade cracking to reveal something with too many eyes. I smashed the first mask against the altar. It shattered like glass, and Dad screamed. Actually screamed, as something dark and shapeless tore itself out of his body and dissipated into nothing. The second mask followed. Ethan collapsed, suddenly just a confused 16-year-old boy asking, Alex? What's happening? Where are we? The third mask broke, and Mum's otherworldly light flickered out. She blinked, looking around the basement in horror. But as I raised the 4th mask, Lily's mask, something stopped me. A small hand on my wrist. Please don't, Lily whispered. And for a moment she sounded like my little sister again. The Crow Lady says if you break her house, she'll have nowhere to go. She'll be alone again. I looked into Lily's eyes and saw my sister fighting, trying to surface through whatever was controlling her. Lily, it's not real. The Crow Lady isn't your friend. But she loves me, Lily said, tears streaming down her face. She says I'm special. She says she chose me because I'm brave and smart and... You're brave and smart, I interrupted. Brave enough to let her go? For just a moment, Lily's expression cleared completely. Alex, I'm scared. There's something inside me, and it won't leave. I know, Lily, but I'm going to help you, okay? She nodded, squeezing her eyes shut. Do it fast. I brought the 4th mask down on the altar with all my strength. The sound that came out of Lily as the mask shattered wasn't human. It was the cry of something ancient and furious being torn away from its host. But when it faded, Lily collapsed into my arms, unconscious but breathing normally. The basement was silent except for our ragged breathing. Mom, Dad and Ethan looked around in confusion, as if waking from a long dream. Alex? Mum's voice was her own again, weak and frightened. What happened to us? How long have we been... I'll explain later, I said, helping Lily to her feet. Right now we need to get out of this house. But as we headed for the stairs, I noticed the 5th mask, the eldest's mask, was gone from where Dad had left it. Looking for this? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, ancient, patient, amused. You've freed my servants, young Alex. How inconvenient, but not catastrophic. I've been bound to this place for 136 years. I can wait a little longer for new vessels. We're leaving, I said firmly. Oh, but you can't. Not really. You see, by breaking the binding, you've made yourselves part of it. The house needs guardians, and I need you to eventually grow tired of fighting me. As we climbed the basement stairs, I felt the truth of those words. The house itself seemed to pulse around us, alive and hungry. The walls breathed. The floors shifted beneath our feet. And somewhere in the distance I could hear it. The sound of the dirt road rearranging itself, making sure we couldn't leave. We spent that night huddled together in the living room, no one willing to sleep alone. Bandit had finally come inside, whimpering and staying close to our makeshift camp. Every few hours we'd hear movement in the walls, scratching, whispering, the patient sound of something waiting. What does it want? Ethan asked. Time, I replied. It wants us to get tired of being afraid. It wants us to start thinking that maybe being possessed wasn't so bad. It wants us to put the masks back on willingly. Will we? Lily asked in a small voice. I didn't answer because I wasn't sure. How long can a human mind fight something that has literally forever to wait? The next morning, I tried to call for help using our landline, which had mysteriously started working again. But every number I dialed, Police, fire department, even the pizza place in town, reach the same voice, patient, ancient, amused. "Hello, Alex, ready to come home? We've been here for 3 days since breaking the masks. 3 days of fighting the house's attempts to separate us, to wear us down, to make us give up. The walls whisper our names at night. Our reflections in the mirrors sometimes move on their own. The basement door keeps unlocking itself. And I'm getting tired. That's why I'm writing this down. Because I can feel my resolve weakening, and I need to remember why we're fighting. I need to remember that the thing wearing my family's faces for those weeks wasn't them. I need to remember that giving in would mean losing ourselves forever. But mostly, I need someone to know what happened here. In case we don't make it. In case the house wins. Because I can hear it now, that patient voice whispering from the walls. When you're ready, Alex. When you're ready to stop fighting. The masks are waiting. Your family is waiting. I'm waiting. And the terrible truth is, part of me is starting to listen. If you're reading this, if you somehow found this journal, please understand. The house on Blackwood Road is not empty. It's waiting. It's always waiting. And sometimes, late at night when exhaustion makes my defences weak, I catch myself thinking that maybe it wouldn't be so bad to stop fighting. Maybe being part of something eternal has its appeal. Maybe the masks are calling to me for a reason. Maybe. Number, I won't let it win. I won't let it take us. But I'm so tired. And the masks are so beautiful. And the voice is so patient. And forever is such a long time to wait.